And you're welcome again to another exciting edition of Organic Academy. Now, for a while now, I have not posted anything, for a while now, as a result of so many engagements here and there. But now I'm back and bigger and better. All right. Now, I will be starting a new series, you know, and it's actually titled The History of Computing. Now, in this series, we're going to be looking at, the different devices that has been invented over the years before the coming of the computer. Okay. Now, one of the things that you will discover in the course of our discussion is that many of these devices they are actually counting devices, that is they perform mathematical calculations and calculations. All right. So the reason being that the computing system of the computer, is built on that particular foundation of having to calculate. Now, you cannot, when you're talking about the history of the computing system, you cannot actually separate the history from number system. Okay, what do I mean? Now, the number system, we have different number system. Now, the primary basic number system that the computer understand is actually the binary numbers. I'm sure many of you must have come across binary numbers, whether in your primary school, whether in your secondary school, or one way or the other, you must have come across binary numbers, and so it's actually made of two digits, right? Zeros and of course one. All right. We have other number systems that we are accustomed to. You know, we have the one that is popular and we actually know, which is the decimal number system. And of course, the decimal number system actually starts 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, has about 9 digits or so. So that is the decimal number system. We are accustomed to that number system. We know that number system. But there are also other number systems, like we have the octa number systems, we have the hexadecimal number systems, we have the even the binary coded decimal. Now, what is the essence of all these? How will you call it now? What's the essence of all these systems, all these number systems? Now we know that the number system that we're accustomed to, which is the decimal number systems, humans use it for mathematical calculations, as that is the number systems that have been used over the years, from generations, even to presently, we are still using that particular number system. So we know that. Now, but for the other number system, like for instance, the octa number system, the hexadecimal number system, you know, you need to understand how the computer thinks or process data rather. When the computer and when a data is given to the computer to process, to give out information, what actually happens behind the scene that your physical eyes cannot see is that the computer does a lot of calculations, and this calculation is not using the number system that we know, but rather it uses the binary number system. So in the course of processing this data, to give out a meaningful information, there's a lot of calculations going on between these binary digits, your zeros and your ones, and so in the course of doing that, there's going to be, of course, addition, subtraction, multiplication, divisions, and the like of these binary numbers. Now let's assume we have a very large binary numbers, or maybe large amount of data that we want to process, because almost everything that you can think of in the computer, that you see being displayed in the machine internally in the computer is displayed as binary numbers, 0 1. So let's say you want to write something like this is a boy. The computer will interpret all of that a binary to be 0 1 0 1 0 0 0 0 0 1 1 1, stuff like that. So you could imagine the large amount of binary numbers that the computer will have to deal with. So other number systems came in, to actually find a way of compressing this large, binary number systems, for easier understanding and interpretation, especially by humans, of course, and also when you are trying to represent, these numbers in the computer system. So you have octa number systems, for instance, and then you have hexadecimal number system, which is about 16 digits numbers. All these number systems is to compress, the large number system and represent them in a more easier to understand way, presentable way that can actually be easily worked on or calculated whenever you are doing something like programming. So that is number system. So as you can see, right beside me here, you can see this large display of a collection of binary numbers. Like I told you that binary numbers is actually a collection of zeros and one. Okay, so now take a look at this video. I'll be back shortly. Right. Now, having said that, I'm going to narrow our discussion today, or my discussion today, to just two um, devices, that has been used over the years in the course of the development of computer systems. And you discover that these devices, they are actually used for calculations, mathematical calculations like addition, subtraction, multiplication, and of course division. Okay, now of course I laid the foundation before this discussion to tell you that the reason why we are actually looking at no calculating devices, okay, when we are talking about the history of computing, because if you are a computer science, for instance, and you are in the secondary schools and they are talking about the history of computing, discover that they actually make reference to calculating devices. And that's the reason why I started by laying that foundation. The reason why we have to talk about calculating devices. Yes, devices when we are talking about the history of computing. Now, for today series, I am going to narrow down our discussion to just two of them, and the two is the abacus and John Napier. Okay, now let's start with the abacus. The abacus. Now, if you look very closely to me, you will see the diagram of the abacus device. Okay, so that is the abacus. Looking nice, right? All right. Now, the abacus. The abacus was among the first counting devices, that man used. In fact, the abacus device was actually, a lot of historians trace its invention to the ancient Egyptian kingdom. Um, we are talking about in the period of the 10th century BC. Yeah, 10th century BC. And when you're talking about 10th century BC, when you're talking about BC, you are talking about before Christ. Okay, so that's exactly the meaning of BC, before Christ. Now, the Egyptians invented the abacus counting device in the 10th century BC. Okay, now when that is according to a lot of historians, or scholars rather, scholars and historians. Okay, now but then the Chinese now modified the abacus, and I think in the 12th century BC, no, not BC now, rather, but AD. In the 12th century AD, the Chinese modified the abacus device, to get um, a beautiful and nice abacus device. Now, take a look at this video of this Chinese man actually, going through a lecture of the abacus device. All right. Now, like I said, the abacus was invented, in the 10th century BC by a lot of historians attributed that invention, to the ancient Egyptians, and of course, that's the meaning of 10th century BC. I mean, BC. BC has to do with before Christ, and then before the Chinese, actually worked on it. A lot of the abacus that you are seeing now that is being used for research work, exhibition, mission in educational centers, it's actually the abacus, modified by the Chinese. I think that was the 12th century AD. Now that is, the meaning of the acronym AD, as you can see. That is AD right there. It's actually a Latin phrase, ad domino or something like that. Well, anyway, you can Google it, and you see the meaning of AD. But actually, AD has to do with in the year of the Lord. BC is before Christ, and then AD is, when Christ came, and then after, his sojourn on the earth. So within that period. So that is what AD is all about. Now, finally, John Napier. Okay, so John Napier, a lot of historians and scientists, scholars, actually refer to John Napier as an eccentric scientist or eccentric madman, because John Napier actually thinks beyond, the way the normal human think. Some of his witty inventions, they are kind of, crazy. For instance, the Napier's bowl, which we are about to refer to, is actually trying to use addition to achieve multiplication. Now, before I explain, let's see John Napier. Now, that is John Napier. Take a look. That's John Napier. I'm counting the bones. Okay, that is not John Napier. So I believe that is John Napier's junior or brother. All right, now this is John Napier.
3. Yeah, I am Napier, the real
Now,
inventor
all right.
of
So
Napier's bone.
John Napier actually came up with the invention of the Napier's bone. Okay, so now what does the Napier's bone do? Like I said earlier on, the Napier's bone, you know, actually is able to achieve multiplication by the addition of numbers. So now what did John Napier do? Before the invention of this Napier's bone, there was already the logarithm tables. So what John Napier just did was he took the logarithm of each numbers or operands so that he can be able to, use them to do addition, and by successfully adding those numbers together, you can get, the product or the multiplication equivalent of those numbers. That's exactly the image of the Napier's bone. You know. Now, why is it called Napier's bones, or why is it called bones? Actually, you know, during his time, ivory was very popular then. And what is ivory? Ivory is simply that white tox. You take a look at the image of this elephant, that white tox of the elephant is actually referred to as ivory. So ivory was, very popular in his time. Ivory was actually a very, valuable, how will I call it now, device in those time. And even right now too, ivory is still very, very, very valuable. And it has been credited to the extinction of many elephants, because a lot of people kill elephants just to get that white tox, to do something. So it is that ivory that it took and then crested these numbers on to form what is called the Napier's bone. So take a look again. That's the Napier's bone. All right. Now, like I said, I'm going to be narrowing our discussion just to the Napier's bone and the abacus. Now, when I come back, we are going to continue from this Napier's bone, and then we'll look at other devices that have been invented, the Shikart calculating clock, and then the father of computing, Charles Babbage, is analytical engine. I was able to invent that. All this we are going to discuss in the next video. So watch out for the next video. Bye.